Shalom, brothers and sisters. Shalom. Giving honor and praise unto the Most High, the Creator and Maker of heaven and earth. Shalom, the one who sees all and is not seen, the one who judges all and is not judged. That is the one of whom we're speaking of. We hope and pray that everybody is well and will be better. We hope and pray, brothers and sisters, that your family is well. We hope and pray, brothers and sisters, as we get into this presentation, that you all are going to be willing to hear what a brother has to say. I may say certain things that some may disagree with. I may say certain things that may sound unbelievable. But nonetheless, in due respect, I do state that I have fact-checked the sources in which I'm talking about. And in such, I, not trying to sound disrespectful, brothers and sisters, stand by what I present and stand by what a brother is saying. This presentation is called The Matter of Palestine. Due to the fact of certain events that have recently been transpiring, brothers and sisters, we definitely want to speak upon said matter. I have recently been asked, how do I feel about it? And this is not to say I'm a prophet, because I'm not. But none of the prophets spoke in saying, I feel such and such. Everything was a former prophet has stated, thus saith the Lord. And one of the things we care to point out for reference purposes, brothers and sisters, is this. The true house of Israel, as has been presented on this channel, more than Yeshaya Torah lessons and certainly more than Yeshaya history lessons, has been the people that have been displaced from their land. And brothers and sisters, the people who have been occupying the land for quite some time now are not the true people of the Israelites. Now, in fairness, and is not trying to sound funny in saying so, when Abraham left from Ur Chaldees and went to the land of Canaan, Genesis chapter 12 tells us that the Canaanite was then in the land. So the Israelites, in their story of the matter, doesn't get into trying to portray that the Israelites, or that's to say before them, the Chaldeans whom they descended from. When you go to Ezekiel chapter 23, verse 15, you find that to be the case. They didn't go there and say, we discovered something. Like it's been portrayed concerning a gentleman named Cristobal Colombre coming over here to the Western Hemisphere, working for the Spanish, given the name eventually as Christopher Columbus. What we care to point out, brothers and sisters, is that what you see going on there in the land of Israel, on quote, both sides, is two people who refuse, apparently, to go very blatant about certain things. To let it be known, while the president of the Palestinians last month said in BBC News that the Jewish people you see there are not the Israelites, but rather are the people from the Khazars of Europe. Now, whether he said it or not, I know it wasn't reported about who he said the true house of Israel is. So if, for instance, the European Jews that you see in the land of Israel are not the true Israelites, then we may have to ask, who are the true Israelites, the true inhabitants of the land, if the people in the land are not the true people of that land? That would mean that by default, there would have to be a true people of that land. So, brothers and sisters, we speak about the Israelites being taken by the Assyrians, being taken by the Babylonians, having to acquiesce to the rule of the Persians, being dispersed greatly during the time of the Greeks, and ultimately, which we're going to present in this during the time of the Romans. We're going to cite the scriptures first, and we're going to read, if we will, in Psalm the 83rd chapter, brothers and sisters, and let's see what it says in that case. We actually ought to get your scriptures and so forth. Psalm chapter 83 reads on this wise: Keep not thou silence, O Elohim, hold not thy peace. and be not still, O Elohim. So what can we, brothers and sisters, gather in this particular case? Is that the Israelites under Asaph was saying, keep not still and hold not thy peace. It goes on to say, for lo, thine enemies make a tumult, and they that hate you lifted up the head. They who hate the Most High lifted up the head. What can we gather from that particular case? Who are the enemies of the Most High that we see of in Psalm 83 here? Let's see what it says. They have taken crafty counsel against your people. It consulted against thy hidden ones. They have said, come, and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. So we see already that there was a confederacy, for the lack of a better term, to make a thing being known as causing the name of Israel to be cut off from remembrance. What can we gather concerning that particular matter? For they have consulted together with one consent. They are confederate against thee, the tabernacles of Edom, and the Ishmaelites of Moab, and the Hadrians, Gebal, and Ammon, and Amalek, the Philistines with the inhabitants of Tyre. Ashur also is joined with them. They have helped the children of Lot, Salah. So it mentions different nations in this that have come together to go against the people of the Most High. It says here again, the tabernacles of Edom and the Ishmaelites of Moab and the Hadrianites, Gebal and Ammon and Amalek, the Philistines with the inhabitants of Tyre. So Tyre, we've gone over several times, is where the Zidonians were. The Zidonians in part were of the Canaanite people. Well, they were part of the Canaanite people who were from the Hamitic people. The Philistines that we see up here in Psalm 83, when you go in your own time in the book of Chronicles, you'll find out that the Philistines belong to the people of the Egyptians. So you got descendants of the Egyptians and descendants of the Canaanites that were in league with Assyria and other nations to cut the name of Israel off from remembrance. Brothers and sisters, what can we gather from that particular matter? What can we gather from that particular stance? They wanted to, brothers and sisters, have a league, a confederate, if you will, to go against the people of the Most High. But in order for them to do so, they had to sit there and make a league about such. Shalom to the people in the chat. Shalom, my brother Yirmiyahu Yisrael. Shalom, Sar Yehu ben Lewi. Shalom, Aliyahu Yashar Al. Shalom, Mark Asbury. Okay. When it says, where can you read about him saying that? That's actually in BBC News, when you read about the Palestinian president saying that the European Jews come from the Khazars. That's in BBC News. You probably won't find that heavily, say, in American newspapers like that. But in that particular manner, in that particular case. All right. If I can be heard well and people are in good spirits, please type in the number 4. If I can be heard well and people are in good spirits, please type in the number 4. So we already see, right, in the book of Psalms, that certain nations are by default already mentioned. And let us, brothers and sisters, thank you for that, my family. Let us get into, if you will, this particular case. We already have read, and it's not to make light of it, in the scriptures, in Psalm 83rd chapter. I'm going to read from a book here. I want to show the reference of such. Here's what I'll be reading from. right? This is called The Complete Works of Tacitus. Now, I'm going to read two parts of this book. This book is divided into 5 books. And it's something that I want to care to read out of this for edification purposes, if we will. All right? It says concerning the matter of the attack on the Israelites under the Romans. Here's what he says. He being Titus, he found in Judea 3 legions, the 5th, the 10th, and the 15th, all old troops of Vespasian's. To these he added the 12th from Syria, and some men belonging to the 18th and 3rd, whom he had withdrawn from Alexandria. Now, we're talking about Titus of Rome getting different legions of Roman armies to go against the children of Israel. And it says that there were 3 already, 10, 11, and 15, 15, 10, and 5, that is, that belonged to Vespasian. And to that, he had the 12th, the 18th, and the 3rd. Now, when it says from Alexandria, that is from Alexandria in Egypt. Because remember, Alexander, centuries before that, founded a place in Egypt called Alexandria. Let's go in, Israel. This force was accompanied by 20 cohorts of allied troops and 8 squadrons of cavalry. What does this sound like? If you remember Rosewood, they sat there, and while the Ku Klux Klan was founded in the Midwest, they found them in Rosewood, Florida in the 1920s. So they gathering all their people together, brothers and sisters, to sit there and to go against who? The children of the Most High God. So let's continue on and see what it says. Remember, we already read Psalm 83 about them making a confederacy and being one consent. And the goal of them is to what? Cut the name of Israel off, that it be what? No more in remembrance. So, sidebar, brothers and sisters, we don't need the Merneptah Stela to prove our existence. Merneptah, the king of Dynasty 19, spoke about Israel. And me and my lady, while in Egypt, saw the Merneptah Stela inside the Egyptian museum. But you know what? That thing that we found or that we saw while we was in Egypt, that's not our evidence. We don't need the Egyptians saying that the seed of Israel is spoiled like Merneptah did in a stela found by Flinders Petrie in 1896. We got Deuteronomy 28. We got our book to sit there and speak on such. You understand? So, brothers and sisters, as we get into this particular matter, Shalom, Petros, Shalom, Shamar, Shalom, everybody in the chat. And of course, Shalom to my lady Sarai. Thank you for all joining in. Let's continue, brothers and sisters, with the time allotted. It goes on to say this. Remember, we're reading in the book of Tacitus, the histories, book 5. Let's see what he says also. This force, being already 18, 3, and 12, 10, 15, and 5, all of those 6 legions, it says this force was accompanied by 20 cohorts of allied troops and 8 squadrons of cavalry, by the 2 kings, Agrippa and Sohemus, by the auxiliary forces of King Antiochus. Agrippa, do you know who Agrippa is? Agrippa is what the Romans in part called Idumeans. Correct me if I'm wrong. Who are the Idumeans? Edom. Idumea is Edom. When we read in Psalm 83 about the first nation that's going to cut Israel off the name, we read Edom. And then we read who? It says in Psalm 83, verse 6, the tabernacles of Edom and the Ishmaelites. Let's continue reading a secular book for those who care. It says this, by a strong contingent of Arabs who hated the Jews with the usual hatred of neighbors. And lastly, by many persons brought from the capital, which is Rome, and from Italy by private hopes of securing the yet unengaged affections of the prince. The prince, by default, would be, correct me if I'm wrong, Titus in this case. With this force, Titus entered the enemy's territory. Now, Titus was a Roman, speaking from the Roman's perspective, preserving strict order on his march, going through every spot, and always ready to give battle. At last, he encamped near Jerusalem. So we already see that you had legions and many others, peoples who brought from the capital, Italians, if you will, for the lack of a better word, Romans and those from Italy, as we see here. I want you to just sit there and see it so you won't think I'm just making something up. It's coming out of this book here, brothers and sisters, that you sit there and see. Where he sits there and speaks about these different peoples. So you mean to sit there and tell me that the people we saw in that movie by Spike Lee, Do the Right Thing, are the descendants of those who came against our land? When we were children, and I'm 43 years old, and they pushing Mario Brothers with his brother Luigi, you mean that is the image of the people that came against our land? Because not only was Titus taking allegiance from his father and his own, it says other people of Italy in the capital being Rome. And it mentions, as we read, Arabs. Now let's go back there and read Psalm 83 to sit there and see what happened with the land. It goes on to say, the tabernacles of Edom and the Ishmaelites. So how did Ishmael get into that equation? Who invited him into that? Because before the time of Nehemiah, in the 5th century BCE, Israel and Ishmael, for the most part, was at peace. You don't really read about too many problems with Ishmael in Israel in most cases. You more read about Israel and Philistia, Israel, Mizraim, Israel and Moab, Israel and Ammon, Israel and Edom. But we're going to point out, brothers and sisters, that geographically where the Palestinians are is the same geographical locus or location where the ancient Philistines were. So now let's understand some history. If you remember the timing of Ptolemy, we do not ever want to forget that, because when they try to say, oh, the ancient Israelites were not what you call today black, I want to show something, not being so sensitive. This is me. They will call me black, even though my skin tone is brown, my head covering is red, but they will still call me black. So using that, say, as an example, brothers and sisters, right? They try to say they are the Mena people. They're neither black nor white. So this is what I wanted to talk about, if I may, giving honor to the Most High. It's two people fighting, as I heard as a child, for a land that doesn't belong to them. But it seems as if, while not getting sidetracked, everybody's talking about Puffy, Puff Daddy, Usher, somebody getting locked up on the count of Tupac's murder. It seems as if there's two sides and both of them want to sit there and not reveal certain things. We don't like each other, but we have a commonality against them. Them being the true house of Israel. You understand? Now, this is not trying to play gangster talk. The guy Shook, who's doing essentially life, or 20-something years, being 50-something now, essentially life for murder, he was what you would call part of the Pyrus or the Bloods. And the people who he put under him in part was artists who were what you would call Lokes or Crips, if you will, right? Again, this is not to get sidetracked, but just showing how some would be. Mind you, all these people I'm just mentioning are Israel. They just may not know it. Even though I think people in the Boule know it, but we don't want to get too far on that. But getting back, brothers and sisters, into this point, you can have an association and a commonality with someone while at the same token not liking the another one. Your unity is not 100%, but your commonality and what you agree upon is we don't like the true house of Israel. So these people that we just read of, called Arabs, inside of the historian Tacitus, it says of having a hatred for the Jews, which we know is of Judah. Because who were the first ones when Israel left the land to go into the land, if it was not Idumea and another people called the Nabateans. I'm going to type that into the chat, if I may. All right, thank you all for the time. It's appreciated. Look these people up when you get the time. Idumea and Nabateans. Brothers and sisters, let's go back in the scriptures to let it speak for itself, if we will, brothers and sisters, all right? Oh, sorry, I miswrote that. Nabateans, sorry about that, family. Look up those two peoples and you will see as Israel, the true house of Israel, began to fall. Those are the people that came into and replaced the Israelites inside of that land. Did you know with the slave trade, and this is what some who may not understand the role of the slave trade and what happened, other people in Africa took the place of the people that were sold. After you had a whole good part of the tribe, other people from other parts came into those parts of Africa and replaced, if you will. All right? Let's go in the book of Chronicles, if we will, family, with the time allotted. All right? And here is what we see in this case. We in the book of First Chronicles, right? And we're going to be reading in First Chronicles chapter 1, verse 28. All right? First Chronicles 1, verse 28 says this. The sons of Abraham, Isaac, and Ishmael, these are their generations. The firstborn of Ishmael, Nebaioth, then Kedar, and Abdil, and Mibsam. So let's stop right there in First Chronicles. It says the firstborn of Ishmael was Nebaioth. Nebaioth are the ancestors of the people that you call the Nabateans. These are some of the same people who had a problem with Israel when you go into the book of Nehemiah. So when we go back in our book in Psalm 83 and we see these different nations on the list, it's not that hard to figure out what and who we are talking about for reference purposes. All right? Just want to put that little intro out there for 20 so minutes. And we're going to start in the slideshow. Thank you all for joining on, if you will. And we're going to start this from the beginning. And we're going to begin this particular portion and starting in prayer before the Most High. Let's read, if we will, in Psalm the 37th chapter. We are in the scriptures in Psalms chapter 37. Now, I'm not going to get too personal, but the reason why it struck my spirit to read this is because brothers like my friend Yirmiyahu, who's online, if my standard be correct, I believe the brother's still online, was talking about Psalm 37 not too long ago. So let's read that. Hallelujah. Fret not thyself of evildoers, neither be thou envious against the workers of iniquity, for they shall soon be cut off like the grass, and wither as the green herb. Trust in Yah and do good. So shalt thou dwell in the land, and verily thou shalt be fed. Delight thyself also in Yah, and he will give thee the desires of your heart. Commit thy way unto Yah, trust also in him, and he shall bring it to pass. And he shall bring forth thy righteousness as the light, and thy judgment as the noonday. Rest in Yah and wait patiently for him. Fret not thyself because of him who prospereth in his way, because of the man who bringeth wicked devices to pass. Cease from anger and forsake wrath. Fret not thyself in no wise to do evil, for evildoers shall be cut off. But those that wait upon Yah, they shall inherit the earth. For yet a little while, and the wicked shall not be. Yea, they shall diligently consider his place, and it shall not be. But the meek shall inherit the earth, and shall delight themselves in the abundance of peace. The wicked ploweth against the just, and gnasheth against him with his teeth. Yah shall laugh at him, for he seeth that his day is coming. The wicked have drawn out the sword, and have bent their bow, to cast down the poor and needy, and to slay such as be upright in conversation. Their sword shall enter into their own heart, and their bows shall be broken. A little that a righteous man hath better than the riches of many wicked. For the arms of the wicked shall be broken, but Yah upholdeth the righteous. Yah knoweth the days of the upright, and their inheritance shall be forever. They shall not be ashamed in evil time, and in days of famine they shall be satisfied. But the wicked shall perish, and the enemies of Yah shall be as the fat of lambs. They shall consume, and to smoke they shall consume away. The wicked borroweth and payeth not again, but the righteous soweth mercy and giveth. For such as be blessed of him shall inherit the earth, and they that be cursed of him shall be cut off. The steps of a good man are ordered by Yah, and he delighteth in his way. Though he fall, he shall not be utterly cast down, for Yah upholdeth him with his hand. I have been young and now am old, yet I have not seen a righteous forsaken, nor his seed begging bread. He is ever mindful and lendeth, and his seed is blessed. Depart from evil and do good, and dwell forevermore. For Yah loveth justice and forsaketh not his holy ones. They are preserved forever, but the seed of the wicked shall be cut off. The righteous shall inherit the land, and dwell therein forever. The mouth of the righteous speaketh wisdom, and his tongue talketh of judgment. The law of his Elohim is in his heart. None of his steps shall slide. The wicked watcheth the righteous, and seeketh to slay him. Yah will not leave him in his hand, nor condemn him when he is judged. Wait on Yah and keep his way, and he shall exhort thee to inherit the land. When the wicked are cut off, thou shalt see it. I have seen the wicked in great power, and spreadeth himself like a green bay tree. Yet he passed away, and lo, was not. Yea, I sought him, but he could not be found. Mark the perfect man, and behold the upright. For the end of that man is peace. But the transgressors shall be destroyed together. The end of the wicked shall be cut off. But the salvation of the righteous is of Yah. He is their strength in the time of trouble. And Yah shall help them and deliver them. He shall deliver them from the wicked and save them, because they trust in him. Brothers and sisters, and giving honor and praise unto the Most High, the Creator, the Maker of heaven and earth. That was Psalms, the 37th chapter. We hope and pray that everybody is well and will be better. For quite some time now, Israelites have been saying a statement. You have two sets of people fighting for the land that's not theirs. If one stands to be right, as we spoke earlier about the Ptolemies mixing with everything and everyone, making today what you call, quote, the MENA people, MENA, are descendants of the Ottoman Turks, the Ottoman people that were out of Turkey, after the Ptolemaic Greeks mixed in, and the Seleucid Greeks mixed in with those peoples. When we were in Egypt, the tour guide took advantage, and I say this in respect, to let me and my lady know this is when my people came in. So different nations know the time frame of such a matter. As we pointed out earlier, when Abraham of Chaldea went to the land of Canaan, brothers and sisters, he didn't say, and it's not recorded, I discovered the land of Canaan. No, you did not, Abraham, discover the land of Canaan. You went there, and as Genesis 12 says, the Canaanite was then in the land. So the Israelites don't start their story in Genesis by starting in chapter 1 with Israel. It talks about Sumer, which we're going to talk about. It talks about Ethiopia, which we're going to talk about. It talks about Egypt, which we're going to talk about. It talks about the nations of Japheth and Ham, as well as other nations of Shem. Israel, correct me if I'm wrong, don't appear in the Bible to Genesis 28. Because you can't start your story with you, because you came from somewhere in something. Ezekiel 23, as we pointed out, already pointed us out to the fact of saying what? The land of Chaldea, the land of their nativity. Chaldea is by modern day Iraq. Brothers and sisters, the true peoples of Ishmael began to migrate into what we know as the southern land of Judah as time went on. The Edomites already running that land since the timing of King Joram of Judah, for those who know the history. King David had the Edomites in subjugation from his timing all the way down until the timing of King Jehoram of the nation of Israel. And then they broke free from that, which takes you back to the portion that Isaac gave to Edom. You will serve your brother, and in later times you shall break your brother Jacob's yoke from off your neck. So eventually Edom did serve Israel. Like I said, the elder shall serve the younger in Genesis. But after a while, Edom broke away from it. So now by the time you get to Ezekiel, which is during the time of the Babylonian Empire, and it corresponds with the timing of Obadiah, it says when Judah fell, Edom, you should have not been there to cut off those that escaped of Judah when the time of Judah's calamity was coming to an end. Edom was there like, yeah, we're going to take this land and we're going to get rid of these people. And other nations we see later on joined on with them. That was not what you were supposed to have done. Giving honor to the Most High. This presentation is brought to you from Danitepublications. Check the website, Danitepublications.com. This is presented on Mordeh Yeshaya Torah lessons and Mordeh Yeshaya history lessons. Thank you. We hope and pray that you all are well and will be better. Let us continue. Subscribe to the channel, comment, like, and share. The map we're looking at here, what does it say? This map was issued by the National Geographic in 1947. 1 year after Nakba, there was no such thing called Israel. See, the way this is supposed to be presented was that whole land there was called Palestine, right? And there's no such thing called Israel. I remember, and my lady knows what store I'm talking about, is one of my favorite stores to go to get food on Fulton Street. And I remember it's across the street, my lady, from the Senegalese place. You know what place I'm talking about. I remember before the C19, because they asked you not to say the whole thing when you're doing a lesson or whatever, that COV thing and so forth. So I say before the C19 matter really came into effect, say in New York, right? I went to that store. And I remember saying Israel. And these people who were in there said, there's no such thing as Israel, it's Palestine. And I said, oh, wow, okay, let me just get this food and keep it moving. Knowing a little bit of history and having the fairness of mind to know that Abraham did not go into the land of Canaan and said he discovered something. And we already know that the Arabs coming from the line of Ishmael are more so in Arabia. Why are you so vehemently hard to say there's no place called Israel, it's Palestine, when you come from, by default, Arabians who from Ishmael? See, this is why we cite our sources. And remembering that just because, for the lack of a better term, your enemies does not sit there and make them your friend. Your enemy's enemy is not always your friend. This is why we wanted to point out, since the days of over 1,000 years ago, it says, by the auxiliary forces of King Antiochus, by a strong contingent of Arabs who hated the Jews, meaning of Judah, with a usual hatred of neighbors. So these Arabs were not per se the friends of the Israelites. So while, unless it's been edited, you got a newspaper saying that, oh no, y'all not the real Jews, they are still not coming out stating who are the true house of Israel. So again, you got two people who know something, but hope the other one don't say too much. So when you read here a thing called Nakba, that's when they say that's when the European Jews, according to the Arabs, came into there in 1948. It says before that, there was no such thing called Israel. This is what this meme is saying. Read the words there unless I'm misreading it. So not to sound, quote, religious, the Islamic book called the Quran, which is not really said as Quran, is really an Arabic Quran for those into that, right? Chapter 17, where it distinctly speaks about who? The children of Israel. When you go into the first chapter of the Quran, chapter 1, verse 122, it talks about Israel. When you go into Quran, chapter 3, it talks about Abraham, Ishak, Isaac, Jacob, Jacob, Musa, Moses, and the tribes. What tribes did Moses belong to? The tribes of Israel. So how are you following a religion that your holy book speaks about a people, but you're going to say that land did not exist before 1947? Who do you think, no disrespect intended, set off the slave trade that made the Portuguese very happy? The Arabs did. They're the ones who started the slave trade, and for Khalid Muhammad, to may he rest in peace, to have been a Muslim, one of the few Muslims to have pointed that out. It was the phrase, Islam or death, the Quran or the sword. We already know what Christianity has done. We go over that quite often. But we want to point out that you have here, brothers and sisters, two different people who are at odds with each other, but they have a commonality in them being at odds with us. Now, when I say us, I'm speaking about our people, the true house of Israel, brothers and sisters. We do not want to forget that, as we see here in this case. It says there was no such thing, they don't even say place, no such thing called, quote, unquote, Israel. Even though your philosophy and your doctrine talks about it, Israel, but okay. Even though Muhammad was taught by Israelites, okay. Even though the first holy land of Islam was Jerusalem and not Mecca. But when the Israelites rejected it, you decided to make Mecca the place as opposed to Jerusalem the place. Sidebar. Did you know, brothers and sisters, that Hatshepsut, whose mummy me and my lady saw when we was in Egypt, do you know that she called the land of Israel the Holy Land in her speeches? She was an Egyptian pharaoh, or Egyptian ruler. And in her writing, she spoke about the Holy Land being the land of the retenue. The retenue is part of the land that they refer to today as the Levant, which is inclusive, brothers and sisters, of the land of Israel. So, brothers and sisters, these are things we care to point out for reference purposes. If I can be heard and people in good spirits, please type in the number 4. If I can be heard and people in good spirits, please type in the number 4. Because before we talk about, oh, someone is getting attacked, and this is not to make light of life. I've had family members that were attacked in the United States. I personally have been attacked. I have been harassed and searched by police, and I have been jumped by black guys. So this is not to ever make anything ever light of anyone being attacked, brothers and sisters. And this is not to play prophet. Now, when you got two sets of people who know something, they may expose each other, but they're not going to go but so far. That's how you know there's 3 sides to every story. Your story, the other story, and then the truth, because they both can be sitting up there and hiding a truth. Let us continue, brothers and sisters. And we're going to get back to that map for reference purposes, if we will. The emperor will speak on Hadrian. According to the source, the Oxford History of Roman History, was of Spaniard descent. He ruled from 117 to 138 AD or CE, the Common Era. Hadrian opposed circumcision for the Hebrews. He was born in 76 AD or CE, and thus was alive when the Kittos battle occurred. Hadrian of Rome stated that any Israelite coming back into the land of Israel will be killed. So where were the Israelites sat for Hadrian to say, if you come back to your land, you're going to be killed? They were in Egypt, they were in Libya, they were in Saudi Arabia, they were exiled from their holy land. And they were in Rome. Remember, Titus of Rome, correct me if I'm wrong, he died in 81 AD, while Hadrian was still a little kid or still a little boy, is when Titus of Rome died. So if Titus of Rome died, correct me if I'm wrong, in 81 AD or 81 CE, and we already know the history with that, as we briefly spoke about from the book of Tacitus. And Josephus talks about Titus taking Israelites that was in Alexandria in Egypt and shipping them to Italy for what? The prisoners of war of the sons of Judah. So yes, there were Israelites in Europe, and we're going to show what happened in this presentation concerning such. Remember, he opposed circumcision. So did Antiochus Epiphanes. So did Domitian. Why are these people so hard against us being circumcised? What were you trying to sit there and not have to going into effect? Centuries, or certainly decades before, the matter with Hadrian, and time before Titus, you had the Idumeans, as we spoke of earlier. Remember, we read about Agrippa? That's Esau's line. Herod, the Idumean, the son of Antipater, married into the house of the Levites. Did you know that? The Maccabees, who were Israelites, became the Hasmoneans in history. There was an Israelite woman of the Levite tribe by the name of Mariame, and Herod the Edomite married into her. They've been wanting our women for centuries. In the Atlantic slave trade, they used to sit there and say, can you give us just 2 black women just for us? That was a quote that the Portuguese and French and Spaniards used to make concerning black women in the Atlantic slave trade. They've been wanting our sisters, and some sisters selling out, calling them so swirling for centuries. But it was not like that at first. It was not like that at first. When you do, not to be disrespectful, quote unquote studies, you will find, not being racial or color or anything like that, you will find black women of today saying they'd rather be single before they will quote swirl. Swirling is when a sister goes with a said white man. You will find sisters that would rather be single than to quote cross that line. You find more brothers wanting the daughters of Japhet than sisters of Israel, our people, wanting the sons of Japhet. That is a fact. To be quite candid. This is not to knock brothers. This is not to sit there and say one is a simp for the women or anything of that sort, but that is a fact, brothers and sisters. And I know that there's over 2,000 people subscribed to the channel, and I don't know the ethnic background of all the subscribers and the people who listen to the channel, but I still say and I stand by it. When I saw my daughter for the first time, when she was in the hospital, and I could say there's not a white man that holds his daughter and thinks 20, 30 years that Tyrone, Rasheen, Dwayne is going to be his son-in-law. I say and stand by that. Work together, might even live by each other. But there's certain things he just don't want for his daughter, and that's you, brother. So we want to point this out for reference purposes. So getting back to the matter, say what happened with Herod of Edom in the battle of Actium, to show you how two-faced Esau is, even dealing with other nations. When Mark Antony lost to Octavian, Octavian later on becoming Augustus of Rome, the first Roman emperor. The Edomite Herod, son of Antipater, joined sides with Mark Antony's defeater, or the person who beat him. It's like you got the spirit of a female deer. Well, if they who are your friends and your man get beat down, then you just join on with someone else. You have no loyalty. You didn't try to go and say, Mark Antony, you shouldn't commit suicide. No, Cleopatra, don't commit suicide. You understand? The spirit of Edom was, I'm going to go wherever I could prosper. He did it with Israel. He did it with Japhet. And he does it to this day. So check that ruach out or spirit out, and then we might be able to find out who the true Edomites are. Next subject, brothers and sisters, getting back into this here, if you will. Let's continue with the time allotted. Thank you for that. Let's go. Danitepublications. Hopefully people are liking, commenting, and sharing this. Brothers and sisters, it is definitely appreciated, and so forth. Map of Canaan, 12 tribe portions. We see here, we're going to show with the laser pointer, if we will, with the time allotted. Right? Asher, Naphtali, Manasseh on the east side of the Jordan, Gad and Reuben. These are the tribes on the east side of the Jordan. So Israel, you may not have to fly through Tel Aviv airport, where Tel Aviv, they say, is the capital of the homosexual world in the so-called Middle East. You may just want to go through Amman, through the side of the Jordan airport, then going through Tel Aviv and having them stop you at the airport and say, why are you over here? Especially if your passport got a Hebrew name on it. So just looking at that in that particular case, you see here, brothers and sisters, this is what we care to point out. Amu, Asiatics. See that there? That book is called, brothers and sisters, Egypt of the Pharaohs by Sir Alan Gardiner. And the first thing that you see inside of the index is Amu, Asiatics. Mentioned on page 37, 131, 141, and 157. Now, one of them pages is in the Middle Kingdom of Egypt, where the leader gave his wife 4 Amu, Asiatic slaves. Why do you think a brother in his book, Egypt Talking Writing, not playing salesman today, talks about the Israelites being in the middle kingdom of Egypt. Part of what the Israelites was called was Amu, inside of the land of Egypt. But they were referring to the people called Asiatics. These Asiatics, by biblical terms, in part, were Hamitic as well. Because if the Canaanites were there, they will also say they were part of the Asiatics. So we just want to point that out for reference purposes. So here we see Israel, the map, divided by their tribes. Now, let's look at this, brothers and sisters, because we remember that Israel, from the time even before Israel existed with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, certainly in the book of Leviticus, it says the land of Canaan where I bring you. That's in Leviticus 18. The land of Canaan where I bring you. So when they show this map here with Palestine, but you got Israelites in the scriptures talking about that land was called Canaan land in the past. Who was trying to wipe whose name out? Israel doesn't say there was no nation called Canaan. Like they see Palestine with its citation saying there's no thing called Israel. Who are you in league with Psalm 83 already have read it in cahoots to get the name of Israel out of remembrance? Who are your friends? Or as the car commercial asks, who's in your pocket? What's in your wallet? Who's keeping you fed? Give an example. We had a job, right? Not to talk business on the Shabbat. And we would go in there early as the security staff to do the mopping, the cleaning of the windows, the sweeping, and the vacuuming. We will do the job of who? The porters. Why? What made us go into that building early to do a job that's not ours? Because we were getting free movie tickets. Those free movie tickets that we were getting was the motivation for us to go and do somebody else's job in that building. So to the conscious community, if you are truly the people of Kemet or Egypt, then go and claim Egypt. Why are you coming against the quote-unquote African Americans saying that they're the Israelites? We shouldn't be the people that you worry about or talk about or want to debate with. You see what happened with the debates now. That's a whole other subject. You understand? It's because just like we went in there for the free movie tickets that we did work for by doing someone else's job, as the porters was there, drinking their coffee, drinking their tea, coming in late, because we will be doing their job and the porters will be coming in late because they said, well, we give them movie tickets, they do our job. One hand washing the other. So who was in our pocket? Who was in our wallet? I'm getting them free movie tickets. So I'm okay doing your job. So while we were silent from the management of the building about it, the porters ain't snitch and we ain't say nothing either. We were both in cahoots. We was in confederate with that. I will mop this floor because I know I'm gonna get a free movie ticket all week long. So who are in these people's pockets for them to sit there and not even mention that Canaan was that land first? And that later became Israel. Because Israel in the scriptures does not deny that that land was called Canaan at first. Leviticus 18 is evidence of it. So these are things we care to point out for reference purposes. So let's go in, brothers and sisters, and bring this out to the people. The Amu mentioned in Sir Alan Gardiner, one of the biggest Egyptologists, spoke of the Egyptians speaking of a people called the Amu, which we know is who? The Asiatics. The Israelites were part of those Asiatics. These are things we care to bring out for reference purposes. Let's go in, brothers and sisters. Topography of Canaan. Phoenician territory. Jezreel Valley. Jordan Valley. Central Highlands. Brown shading. Wonder why they made it brown. Okay, maybe I took color too much. I don't know. Let's go on. Shephelah lowlands. You read about the Shephelah in the scriptures. Philistine territory. You know, you read all of those names, including Canaan, in the Bible. Phoenicia, you read of in the book of Joel. Jezreel, you read of in the book of Joshua. Jordan, you read about in the book of Joshua. The Central Highlands, you read about, if I remember right, in Jeremiah. The Shephelah, you read of in the book of Joshua. And the Philistines, you read of in the book of Judges. So our book mentions all of these different peoples. Why is it that while you are promoting the religion of Islam, which holy book, the Quran, talks about the children of Israel, do you say that land and there was no place called Israel, or no quote such thing as Israel? You're standing contradictory to your religious book to say so. If an Israelite were to sit there and say there were no people called Canaan, Leviticus stands against you, Hebrew Israelites. Why do you think we can say with integrity that when Abraham went out of Ur of Chaldea and went to Canaan, it says in Genesis 12, the Canaanite was then in the land. And like, oh, I go somewhere and nobody's here. And I'm going to sit there and have all of this. This is what? My land. No, you wasn't told what land in full would be yours. Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Because your eyes couldn't see everything that was going to be. The land of Israel is larger than the land that we see even in this map. We want to point that out. Brooklyn, New York is larger than what you see on the maps. We want to point that out. All right? Any questions or comments? Please feel free to put it in the chat. Thank you for that, family. Oh, and the names on this side too is also in the scriptures. Let's show with the laser pointer for reference purposes. Thank you all for joining. I know other platforms are live right now. For those joining live, I appreciate that. It means much. Edom is mentioned in Genesis and through our Chronicles. Moab is in the book of Kings. Ammon is in the book of Kings. Heshbon is mentioned. Mount Nebo's in Deuteronomy. Ashtaroth is in the book of Numbers. Bashan is in the book of Joshua. And yeah. All these lands there is mentioned in our book. So we can't claim this land without mentioning the fact that there were people there before us, O sons of Israel. You was not the first people of that land. And the scriptures does not say we were the first people of that land. Like we came over here to America and we discovered it. When Cristobal Colon never did come to what you call the United States of today. The only part that is a territory of the United States of today that Christopher Columbus, whose holiday was recently, that he went to, was in, correct me if I'm wrong, in 1493 in a place called Borocane, which they later on called Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico meaning the rich port. How did the port get rich? By selling the people of the children of Israel into there. Your port got rich. Puerto Rico means rich port. The port got rich by selling the children of Israel. These are things we want to point out for reference purposes. All right? So, Christopher Columbus never came to any part of the United States of today outside of the place currently called Puerto Rico. And you see when they had that storm, how the government treated them, and that's neither here nor there. And it's a sad situation, but it should be an eye-opener on how you treat it. It should be an eye-opener how the Falashas in Ethiopia are treated. It should be an eye-opener how the people in Dimona was given a territory that was a way station and was given to people that was a bomb shelter. Oh, you stay right there. I watched the movie about the people in Dimona in Israel. You know what the guy said? Excuse my language, while I'm being clean still on Shabbat in my language, y'all N-words stay in Dimona. We're going to keep it clean. That's what he said. Many people in the chat know about the Israelite community in Dimona. He said, y'all N-words stay in Dimona. So who's in league with who to sit there and make sure Israel is not in that land? I've never heard, my brother, that the modern day Palestinians are the Philippines, unless you were meaning to say the Philistines. I've heard people say that the modern day, which I was going to get into, and I appreciate if that's your question, Aki. Thank you for that. That in part the modern day Palestinians are from the Philistines of old. I've heard that, and I was going to touch on that as we went on in this. I appreciate the question, my brother. Thank you for that. But we just want to show the map showing its reality. Let's go on. Comment and like, subscribe. Map of Amorite settlements. If my brother Yirmiyahu in the chat, if you can type in Genesis chapter 15, verse 16, if we will, with the time allotted. 15, verse 16. See, I say the time allotted because I do time myself. All right? We're going to just read one verse. And this is still during the time when Abraham was alive. In Genesis 15, verse 16, it says, but in the fourth generation, they, your seed that is, shall come here again. For the iniquity of the Amorites is not yet filled. The first people we read of in Joshua, correct me if I'm wrong, that the Israelites ran into were the Amorites. On the channel, More Than Yeshaya History Lessons and More Than Yeshaya Torah Lessons, a brother described that they went into the land of Israel by going from the east of it. So showing on the map here, all right, with the, if I may say, pardon my drawing, I'm horrible at that. Them coming up out of the land of Egypt, right? By the way, you do know about the donkey and Balaam speaking is mentioned inside of other records called the Deir Allah, Deiralla, the Deir Allah. That corresponds with you read of in Numbers about them trying to curse the people that came up out of the land of Egypt. So our Bible is mentioned in other sources. So just want to point that out. And it's not a plagiarism. So they went through here. Remember in Numbers, they was trying to go through the land of Edom. And Edom said no. But then when Israel fell, Edom became Idumeans and went into the land. And Moses' character, Edom, let us go through your land. In Numbers chapter 21 and Numbers chapter 22 in that area. No, Numbers chapter 20 and Numbers chapter 21. And Edom said, we will not let you through unless you come here and we'll come to you with the sword. All right. Let us go through your land, and if we eat anything, which we're not going to, we will pay for it. We just read in Psalm 37 that the wicked borrow and don't pay back. That's not good. I know mommy taught me different. Don't be a borrower. And if you happen to borrow, make sure you pay it back. That stuff mommy taught me. See, she's been gone almost 20 years, but those are lessons that you do remember. Don't become a borrower, but if you do happen to have to do it, make sure you pay it back. Just characterize in that case. You understand? It goes on. They didn't go through Edom land because they weren't allowed to. And the Most High told Israel, don't harass Esau. Don't even try to take his land because I gave him Mount Seir. So that's not for you. Know your portion. Edom, they know their portion. That's why you see them trying to go in the land of Judah as time went on. So you had the situation with Moab. And by the time Joshua comes the leader, they're running into these people here called the Amorites. So it shows you in the scriptures what lands they went through. So miss me, no disrespect to sound arrogant, I hope not. The land of Israel is truly in South Africa. No. Northeast Africa, maybe, but not South Africa. The land of Israel is in Peru. No, it's not. The land of Israel is in Utah. No, it's not. The scriptures show you exactly where that land is at. So these are things we want to point out for reference purposes. So brothers and sisters, while these people made a confederacy, and we see in Psalm 83 the names mentioned, right? Why does this say this map was issued by the National Geographic in 1947, 1 year before Nakba, which is what the Arabs called the Jewish people going in? There was no such thing called Israel. And on here, you see what on this map? Syria. Syria was called Aram in the scriptures. Syria was called Khor, Khor, among the Egyptians. And on the same map that they said there was no such thing as Israel, you have Egypt on the map. But there's no land called Egypt among the ancient Egyptians. They called it Tameri and Tashmehu. They called it in unity under Dynasty 11, Sematawi, the unity of the two lands. So what's Egypt? That's a Greek word put to that place. Syria is a Greek word put to that place of the Arameans. And Palestine is named, brothers and sisters, after this guy you see right here. Just as much as he named Palestine, the Greeks named it Syria. The people of the Greeks also named it Egypt. Just like we were called African Americans, a byword by other people. But see, this map here, and I know doing PowerPoints, you can't fit but so much info on one thing, right? Seems to just glide over the fact. Well, there's three sides, not two to a story. About Syria, it's not an ancient name. Egypt, it's not an ancient name of those people. And neither is Palestine. That's not an ancient name belonging to the people either. So your argument in this map is just what? Let us cut the name of Israel off, that be no more remembrance. In 1947, we were still being called Negroes. The term African American became popular, correct me if I'm wrong, after my birth, which was in 1980 and 1988. Jesse Jackson. Maybe those who are older and or more knowledgeable about that than me. I don't think African American as a term is older than myself, and I was born in 1980. See how things can become other names as times go on? And you see African American on legal documentation like a job matter. So these are things we want to point out for reference purposes. All right. Let's continue, brothers and sisters. Any questions or comments, please feel free to type it into the chat. Thank you for that in that particular case. All right. Want to erase on this side, hopefully it's understood. Any questions concerning what we've gone over, I'm able to see it on both these platforms, Mora Yeshaya Torah lessons and Mora Yeshaya history lessons. So I'm able to see the comments. So if you have a comment or a question, please feel free to type it into the chat. This is why this is on the history channel that a brother presents. The matter too of the Bar Kokhba battle in 132 to 135 CE/AD during the era of Hadrian. Hadrian changed the name of Jerusalem to Alia Capitolina and the name of Israel, the land, to Palestine. That gentleman that we saw earlier, he's the one who did that. And these are the coins that the Romans had that they minted showing its praise of it. Let's look, brothers and sisters, in this manner. With the highlighter. Yod, Sin, Resh, Aleph, Lamed, Yisrael. Shown right there on a coin, the one on the right-hand side from the Hadrian era. See that map that we showed earlier saying there's no thing as Israel? They're not going to talk about that. Talking about its courtesy from National Geographic in 1947. Well, this predates that just as much as Canaan predates being in the land before the children of Israel. And it doesn't make us any less valid because we acknowledge that there were people in there before us. We have been teaching as Israel. I know I heard it for decades. We are the last nation. In the scriptures, yes. I'm asked questions. So is Kemet made up? Is a made up name? No, Kemet is the English transliteration of the word Kemet. It should more so be spelled as K-E-M-E and not what we know it to be, K-E-M-E-T. Kemet in Anglicized or Anglicized form is Kemet with the T sound. But what that means is a black land. That's when the alluvial deposits from the Nile comes up upon it. That's what that means in that case. The black that we talk about for color in Egyptian is Pikaku. This way you get the grandson of Aaron named Pinchas. Pinchas, or Phinehas in English form, is actually an Egyptian name meaning black in skin or black as night. But Kemet, said in English form as Kemet, means the black land from the mud alluvial deposits of the Nile. So we just want to point that out for reference purposes. Thank you for the question with that, my brother. So these are things here we want to show. Let's go on, if we will, family. Notes. Please, I ask you. This is not begging or pleading. This is your brother Yeshaya. Some call me Moray. My princess calls me Borin. My lady calls me Ish. I call her Isha. We're going to make that happen. Brothers and sisters, this is me asking you. Please screenshot this. Please, for a reason. Thank you. Let's continue. According to Time Life's Lost Civilizations, the Holy Land edition, we see the following. In the 1st century AD, they, Israel, rebelled against Rome, but were brutally crushed. Jerusalem and its rebuilt temple were destroyed in 70 AD. The rebuilt temple was done by Herod, all right, in 19 BCE. And many other communities were razed, meaning destroyed. After another abortive revolt in 145, the Roman Emperor Hadrian moved to eradicate Jewish claims to his part of his empire once and for all by changing the names of the cities and towns. Jerusalem became Alia Capitolina and was dedicated to Jupiter. Jews were forbidden to set foot there except on the anniversary of the city's destruction, when, legend has it, they were allowed to mourn at the site of the temple. The province named Judea was replaced by Palestine, an intentional insult as it is derived from the Greek word for Philistines, a people who had competed with the Israelites for those fields and hills 1,000 years earlier. Family, this is from Time Life, Lost Civilization. You can get that book on Amazon, not trying to talk about business. What does it say? That we want to highlight this, family, if we will, right? To show why we're saying what we're saying. We're not just making up stuff. And yes, I respect my teachers, but everything I'm saying is not my teacher said and my teacher said. Most of the people online don't know my teachers. Some of my teachers are now deceased. So this is no dishonor to them to sit there and cite where we get our sources from. It don't make you any less of a moray. Hands down. Don't sit there and go through a whole bunch of stuff and cite nothing of where you got your info from. And then somebody comes along later, like Solomon said, a man speaks and then he who is wise come and search out the matter afterward. So you don't want your PowerPoint to be put on blast like that. So cite the sources. Don't sit there and say, I ain't got no teacher. Everything just came to me. No. Everything just didn't just come to you. We read in our great book that our great ancestor Abraham went to a land that there were already people there. He didn't go there and say he discovered it. He did not discover the land of Canaan. Of course, he heard about it before, which makes me think Columbus heard about it before, but that's neither here nor there. But you know something else sidebar to point out? You know what convinced Queen Isabella, more so than King Ferdinand, but more so Queen Isabella, to finance the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria with Columbus? Is because he said, like one West brothers teach, that the tribes of Israel went over here to the Western Hemisphere. It said that is where the tribes of Israel were. Columbus didn't say that he was from the 12 tribes. He didn't tell the grandmother and a grandfather of Charles V, who created the Asiento, which was a slave legal document, that they were the 12 tribes of Israel. He cited, like one West Brothers cite, that they came over here and Israel in part came here that way. That's from a movie called The Discovery with Christopher Columbus. Just wanted to point that out. So now, brothers and sisters, when you look at this right here, right, and we want to show certain things, if we may, with the highlighter, right, with the highlighter, we see, now this is me. When I said they, I had to put it not in parentheses, but brackets, legal matters. When you're citing something and you're putting in your word for clarity purposes, don't put it in parentheses, put it in brackets. Because if you put it in parentheses, the reader, thinking legality, is saying that the original author of it put it in parentheses. When he or she knows about legal matters, authoring books, magazines, editing, etc., explanation, and so on, and you know that the original book that I cited, in this case, did not say Israel, I had to put it in brackets. I'm not getting sued for plagiarism and misquotations. We're not doing that, brothers and sisters. So giving honor to the Most High, let us continue in this manner, if we will. It goes to say they, brackets, Israel, rebelled against Rome, but were brutally crushed. Jerusalem and its rebuilt temple were destroyed in 70 AD, and many other communities razed. After another abortive revolt in 135, that's when we run into our friend Hadrian, the Roman Emperor Hadrian moved to eradicate Jewish, which got cited as it's written in there. I couldn't read Jewish, know it as Israelite, and put Israelite, and still say I'm citing it. I would have to again put the brackets, then put this should be this. That's why for those who read, you will sit there and see one of the arguments about Assyrian history. I know my lady and others say, you always talk about Assyria. All right. I love it. One of the arguments with historians is whether Tiglath-Pileser III or Tiglath-Pileser IV attacked Israel. Hebrewisms of West Africa says it was Tiglath-Pileser, the fourth, whereas most other scholars say it's the third. So what happens at that point, you have to put in brackets, correction, this is that. You find that a lot in Herodotus. You find that a lot in Appian, another historian of the Greek people, and so on. So just want to point that out, that the author of the matter is to always be given what they stated verbatim when you're citing him or her. Now, if you know they made a mistake, but there's a point to be made, you do it in your footnote and so forth. These are things we want to point out for reference purposes. All right, so let's continue. Claims to his part of his empire once and for all by changing the names of the cities and towns. Jerusalem became Alia Capitolina, right? And was dedicated to their God. Jews were forbidden to set foot there except on the anniversary of the temple's destruction, when, legend has it, they were allowed to mourn at the site of the temple. The province, name of Judea was replaced by Palestine. Now, this is Hadrian matter. An intentional insult, as it is derived from the Greek word for Philistines, a people who had competed with the Israelites for these fields and hill 1,000 years earlier. So why, citing this source right here, brothers and sisters, right? Why is it that when we go back here to this meme, for the lack of a better term, They don't say nothing about that in this. They just got the whole thing listed there, Palestine. But there's a place and a people that name got its name Palestine from. So if Hadrian died in 138 AD or 138 CE, CE meaning a common era, right? I'm going to say CE because AD years takes you back to a Christian timeline, and that's a whole other thing. This is why you find secular and quote Christian dates not always agreeing, because they try to do it from a time frame of another counting, but we ain't gonna go that far. But I just want to point that out with this right here, with saying that he died in 138 CE or 138 of the Common Era, and you're saying that this came out in a magazine in 1947 CE. That's over 1850 years, round off. So now we see where Palestine got its name from. While all along in our Torah, in the scriptures, as in Leviticus chapter 18, it said the land of Canaan. Excuse me. So if it says already the land of Canaan, as we see right here on this map, and it don't take nothing away from being an Israelite to say so, why is it that they are all in cahoots to take the name of Israel off from remembrance? There's a reason for that, family. Let's go on, if we will, with the time allotted. Now, the Roman Emperor Hadrian had a male lover. Oh, they was into that. Named Antinos, whatever his name is pronounced as. According to the historian Josephus, the Israelites who were taken to Rome, according to the historian Josephus, the Israelites who were taken to Rome were the tallest and handsomest of the Israelites. If we know that Hadrian had a servant that was his male lover, we can definitely surmise that the Israelites deemed handsome and tall were also used as if they were women. Now, this is not to get too harsh or too sidetracked, brothers and sisters, but we know what they were into. Was it far-fetched to think that the homosexual president before Lincoln, Buchanan, coming from the North and not opposing slavery? Shh, we're going to point that out on this channel, more Yeshaya history lessons in the future. What were you doing with that? The movie called Alexander, I forget who the producer or the director of it was, that came out in the year 2005. They said in Greek wisdom, when a man and another male have what they call intimate relations, that is the highest form of wisdom. So if Hadrian is naming lands in the Greek language, and he was into males, what do you think he would have been okay doing to the men of Israel? The Greeks have an island called Lesbos, where they say the word lesbian comes from, where the women were just kept with the women. When you read in the Apocrypha about the Greeks, and certainly with the Romans, it says that wickedness was multiplied in the earth. That's why Israel, I don't have to show a picture of two males committing an abomination in order to get a point across. The pictures a brother wants to show shows evidence of Israel. So in the Facebook community, not to get sidetracked, when you're showing pictures of Egyptians with that homosexuality and other nations with it, if we're Hebrews, why are you consistently showing pictures of homos? I'm a Hebrew. I'm going to show something of the Hebrews. What are you showing? This is not to get sidetracked, but I had to sit there and block a person on that. I wake up in the morning on my Facebook page tagged in is something about that kind of stuff. I don't need to see that in the morning, Israel. None of us need to see that. You understand? So getting back into this right here, if we will, right? Oh, by the way, and I say this not to get too personal, the homosexual that I have in my family, the women, don't think, well, a man hurt me, so I'm going to go that way. Because a lot of times those relationships, maybe they say it's too much, estrogen, a lot of them are very abusive. There's not peace in a lot of those kind of unions. You understand? And it's a selfish kind of quote unquote culture. See, you don't want baby mama drama, but you want the child that a man and a woman already had in adoption. You don't want baby daddy drama. You don't want to go through what pregnant women go through. Spitting up vomit in the morning sickness. Stretch marks. Somebody kicking you in your stomach, punching you in your stomach. Some men not realizing that a woman go through more emotional things when she's pregnant than at other times, and he thinks she's just acting out and tripping out. No, she's going through a different matter in her life. There's another human being, your little human being too, brother, growing inside of her. So she got baby daddy drama, a little prince or princess kicking and punching her in her stomach, morning sickness and stretch marks, all of those different things. But you don't want to go through that, but you want to sit there, act like you're a man in your relationship, and want to adopt somebody's baby who went through all of that. That's selfishness. You don't want the pain, but you want the joy, if you will. That's a gimme, gimme, I give you nothing mentality. You understand? So, the Israelites did destroy a Greco-Roman building where Pompey's head was buried during the time of Trajan. Israelites were fighting back, brothers and sisters. We may have noticed very quickly, perhaps, that in this right here, you see two menorot or two menorah. Because S is not the pluralization in Hebrew. The word menorah means candlestick. The plural is menorot. So it's not menorahs. It's not ox. It's not akotis. It's not my akims. It's not their imas and their abbas. There's a plural already in Hebrew. This is not to put anybody down, because I grew up in Israel saying they're ox and they're akots. But that's not correct Hebrew. S is not the plural in Hebrew. All right? When you go to Mordeh Yeshaya Hebrew lessons, there is a from lesson 30 to lesson 34, expound. Ak, akim. Akot, akyot. Abba, abot. Ima, emot. The pluralization of such in that case. So inside the chat, Mordeh Yeshaya history lessons, Petros wrote the Maccabee. Yes, by the time, though, we're reading off here with Hadrian, this is after the Maccabees, but it was their descendants called the Hasmoneans, and then later on called the Zealots, the Ebionites, and so forth, that we see during the in the 2nd century CE or 2nd century AD, if you will, for some, regarding that particular case and timing. You see those two menorot or candlesticks, right? That was a catacomb of Israelites in Rome. You know what a catacomb is? It's a place for burial stuff. Israelites had burial places in Rome and decorated it according to their own culture. See, why do we want to point that out? In part because Israel was not just nobody knows the trouble I've seen. That wasn't all Israel. In New Bern, North Carolina, the KKK attempted to attack the black community there. Click, click, this ain't Rosewood. We will blast back. This is not to condone or even push violence. But, brothers and sisters, in the 1920s and 30s, or 1920s or 30s, sorry, in New Bern, North Carolina, What you hear happened, sadly, in Rosewood, Florida, they didn't go through that. They came out of the mud, literally, with their shotguns and their pistols and was blasting back. So just like the maroon communities in Jamaica in slavery, the maroon communities in Virginia in the United States during slavery, while Israelites, yes, was in Rome, we had our own communities there as well. What happened after the timing of Hadrian, after the timing of Septimus Severus, who was an African person that was ruling in Rome as an emperor, that's another history lesson for the future. You will find out that Israelites were kicked up out of the land in 139 AD, the year after Hadrian. They kicked the Israelites out of Rome. You understand? So these are things, brothers and sisters, we care to point out for reference purposes. Next slide, please. No Hebrew was allowed in Cyprus. By the time of Hadrian, the people coming to Jerusalem for a feast had ended. We should remember that the people defeated Israel in 71 CE, brought Hebrew slaves to Roman lands. Roman lands meaning the lands occupied by the Roman Empire. Josephus speaks of such as Titus, who died in 81 AD or CE, I meant to put that in, had the Hebrews paraded around Rome. Dio Cassius, the Roman historian, speaks of the Hebrews being large in number in his era. He lived in 165 to 235 CE. Dio Cassius speaks of the Israelites, and he was a Roman historian. Sorry, not an emperor. See why it's good to quote, cite your sources and to get things done, brothers and sisters. Hadrian did not want the laws to be taught. By the laws, we're talking about the laws of the Most High. He also made sure that a, quote, shrine to, quote, Jupiter was placed. In the Bar Kokhba, sometimes spelled differently, battle, over 900 towns in Israel was destroyed and over 500,000 Hebrews were killed. Do you know that our people were left to burn in a building and the fire department didn't respond to it in the 1900s? Did you know that in Pennsylvania, in Philadelphia in the 1980s, they dropped a bomb on the people that didn't want to leave a land that was living there in peace? Did you know, brothers and sisters, like Rosewood, like the attack that happened in St. Louis also in the 1900s, there was a big attack that was made in 1863 in Brooklyn and Manhattan by the Irish going against black people. So when I started to talk about the Atlantic slave trade more and more, there were people saying, what about the Irish slave trade? That's between the Irish and the British. I can't go to the Irish and the British as a said black man and say, what about those guys who jumped me in Brooklyn? I can't say that. That's a black on black problem. I can't go to someone else and say, somebody ran up, and this did happen. Somebody ran up on my cousin and robbed her right over there by Brownsville and Bed-Stuy. They came up out the car with their guns out and robbed my cousin, a sister. As you go, not to get too personal, by the area as you go by Dumont area, for those who do know it, back in the 90s. How do I look sitting up there going on a white person's platform and saying, those black guys who did it coming out of Tilden and Mother Gaston houses over in Brownsville who robbed my black female cousin? No, that's a black on black problem. Y'all got to work that out among yourselves. Just like the black dudes who jumped me, I can't sit there and run to another people's and complain about that. So if a black man is talking, just using it in terms like that, about the oppression that he or she has been dealing with, he or his or her people, don't come to black people who are victims of both the British and the Irish in history, and then sit there and say, what about the Irish who are oppressed by the British? I don't know what to say about that. That sounds like a personal problem. See, by talking about apples and apples and apples, and then somebody want to come to you with kiwi and strawberry, you're trying to take me away from the goodness of the apple. Apple cleans your teeth. Apple can quench your thirst. You understand? Don't come to me with the health qualities, not to be disrespectful, of the kiwi, because I ain't there yet. I'm here at the apples. So as they say, you're talking about apples, one talking about oranges. When you come to black people, knowing that the Irish were used in Barbados to steer the slave ships in history, and what happened with the Irish attacking blacks in Brooklyn and Manhattan in 1863. So when you ask us about what happened with the Irish slave trade, when we are still walking around with names like Hutchinson, Brown, not because of our complexion, Smith, even White, Robinson, Jeffries, Washington, etc., our names identify that slavery and oppression and replacement of identity has existed. So speak to your oppressors about your problems. Kemet community, if that's your true land in Egypt, go to the United Arab Republic government and talk to them. Me and my lady been in Cairo. They got, not to talk business, Uber out there as well. You can go off the airport, which is a very nice airport, by the way, and go right over there to the embassy and talk to them. Because when we were showing our land in the East, you see what's going on with Israelites in Dimona there. There's a video that a brother made of Israelites, our people, black people in Ashkelon, running away from the bombs. That's going viral on Facebook and so forth. We got our own situation to deal with. So these are things we want to talk about for reference purposes. Let's go on. Next slide with the time allotted. Thank you. By 70 AD, there were thousands of Jews in Seleucia on the Tigris and in other Parthian cities. We want to point out that the Parthians were the enemies of Rome. They were part of the Persian Empire's people. Parthia, you know, during the timing of Antiochus VII, defeated Antiochus VII in favor of the Israelites, the Parthian people. When you read later on in the matter of the Ptolemy and Seleucid history with the Israelites, the Parthians and the Israelites joined together and defeated Antiochus VII. Let's continue. There were Hebrews in Carthage, we pointed that out, Syracuse, Capua, and Rome. Again, during the rule of Severus Septimus after Hadrian, these Israelites, Hebrews / Jews that were in Rome were kicked out in 139 AD. Where did they go? They went, after being removed from there, to Northern Africa, linked up with other Israelites who were already there. Remember, the Kittos battle against the Roman emperors were the Israelites that was in Cyrene. Cyrene is modern day Libya. So Israelites linked up with other Israelites and migrated, just like when they do gentrification in Brooklyn and Harlem. Where do we go? Leaving New York with the high rent, we go to Charlotte, North Carolina. We go to King, North Carolina. We go to Columbia, South Carolina, because we know that's where black people already are. So as the Israelites were being removed from Rome after Hadrian's rule, they went where other Israelites were at. So when Charlotte is now called, in part, the second chocolate city after Washington, D.C., because New York is too much to live in, don't be surprised that history in that light has also repeated itself. You understand? Let's continue on, if we will, family. Explanation of a matter. I ask you, this is me, your brother, again, showing live. I'm asking, not begging or pleading, but asking, please take a screenshot of this. Thank you. The Egyptians were called Magan by the Sumerians. The Egyptians were called Mizraim by the Hebrews. The Romans called the Hellenes the Greeks. What am I saying? The people called Greeks were not called Greeks by their own selves. That's a byword given to them by the Romans. They were called the Hellenes. That's why they call Greek, quote, Greek culture Hellenism. They didn't call themselves Greeks. They were called that by the Roman word Grekos. The Sumerians called Ethiopia Meluha. The Hebrews were called the Sumerians Shinar. The Greeks called the Cushites Ethiopians. Kings, queens, and leaders called other peoples names that were not ethnical to himself or herself. This is called giving one a byword. Israel, we done it too. By calling the people that were later called Egyptians Mizraim. They did not call themselves Mizraim. That you see there in the slide. They called themselves the people of Samatawi. Tasiti, Tamehu, Waset. The different lands in that particular land that they had. Lower Egypt, Upper Egypt of today. And when they call the red and white crown, I pointed this out in a book called From Assyria to America Part 2. I pointed this out about how their different crowns look and how each one identified what. Because in that same book, not playing salesman today, there's a thing in there called Why is Mizraim not Egypt? We're going to talk about that as time goes on. But kings, queens, and leaders. Do you know when me and my lady was in Egypt, right? We seen a tomb, pardon me, not the tomb, but the mummy of Hatshepsut. Do you know what Hatshepsut called who we shown in here earlier? Let's look at this here earlier, right? What do we see? If we will. Thank you for the time, family. You see the thing there that circled Amu or Asiatics? In translation, the lady who we saw in Egypt inside the museum, she referred to them as what you call today barbarians. Everybody know what Hillary Clinton called black males when they was talking about the bill that Bill Clinton, her husband, made, which incarcerated a lot of our brothers and sisters. Because I often wondered, not getting sidetracked, right? In 92, Bill Clinton came into office. And by 94, I started seeing less and less brothers just chilling outside and playing. The basketball courts wasn't as packed. People wasn't, and not saying they was always doing the best thing, was chilling on a corner as much. It's a lot less of our people. Yeah. So now when I am 23 and I go to a prison in upstate New York, Mid-Orange Correctional Facility, that's where they went. Now it makes sense. I don't see them in the basketball court playing in 94, 95 because they're taking to places in upstate New York like Clinton facility. They're taken to Sullivan, a prison in New York, after they spent time in what they call Rikers Isle. That is where they went. So the bill that Clinton made, his wife referred to black males by a term that's not good. And she had to, quote, apologize for it in that manner. So don't be surprised when people name people after events and things. We want to point that out for reference purposes. Now, I call this here with the time allotted part 2 of this. Ezekiel 35. This brother, he teaches, does he teach the scriptures? I know people said that about a brother. I know it, but you know, we want to show the reality of the scriptures. We want to raise the bar that our teachers put us on, if we will. I don't want to do a whole lesson and never cite, because I'm not ashamed to cite the Bible or the scriptures, namely the Old Testament, as it's called. So we're not going to just go over a bunch of different names and nations and peoples and maps and history without letting also the law and or the prophets be mentioned as well to show the reality of it. Ezekiel 35. Let the book speak. Moreover, the word of Yah came unto me, saying, Son of man, set thy face against Mount Seir and prophesy against it, and say unto it, Thus says Adoni Elohim, the Lord God. Behold, O Mount Seir, I am against thee, and I will stretch out my hand against thee, and I will make thee most desolate. I will lay thy cities waste, and thou shalt be desolate, and thou shalt know that I am Yah, because thou hast a perpetual hatred, and have shed the blood of the children of Israel by the force of the sword in the time of their calamity, in the time that their iniquity had an end. Therefore, as I live, saith the Lord God, I will prepare thee unto blood, and blood shall pursue thee. Since thou hast not hated blood, even blood shall pursue thee. Thus will I make Mount Seir most desolate, and cut off from it him that passeth out, and him that returns. And I will fill his mountains with his slain men, and thy hills, and thy valleys, and in all thy rivers. They shall fall that are slain with the sword. I will make thee perpetual desolations, and all thy cities shall not return, and ye shall know that I am Yah. Because thou hast said, These two nations and these two countries shall be mine, and we will possess it, whereas the Lord Yah was there. As I live, saith Yah, I will even do according to thine anger, and according to thine envy, which thou hast used out of thy hatred against them. And I will make myself known among them when I have judged thee. And thou shalt know that I am Yah, and that I have heard all the blasphemies which thou hast spoken against the mountains of Israel, saying, They are laid desolate, they are given to us to consume. Thus with your mouth you have boasted against me, and have multiplied your words against me. I have heard them. Ezekiel chapter 36. Also, thou son of man, prophesy unto the mountains of Israel, and say, Ye mountains of Israel, hear the word of Yah. Thus saith Yah Elohim, because the enemy have said against you, Aha, even the ancient high places are ours in possession. Therefore prophesy and say, Thus saith the Lord God, because they have made you desolate, and swallowed you up on every side, that you might be a possession unto the residue of the heathen, and that you are taken up in the lips of talkers, and are an infamy of the people. Therefore, ye mountains of Israel, hear the word of Yah Elohim. Thus saith Yah Elohim to the mountains, and to the hills, and to the rivers, and to the valleys, to the desolate wastes, and to the cities that are forsaken, which are become a prey and derision to the residue of the heathen that are round about. Sorry about that. Therefore, thus saith the Lord God, surely in the fire of my jealousy have I spoken against the residue of the heathen, that this, and against all Idumea, which have appointed my land, and to their possession with the joy of all their heart, with despiteful minds to cast it out for a prey. Let's read verse 5 again, brothers and sisters. Therefore, thus saith the Lord God, surely in the fire of my jealousy have I spoken against the residue of the heathen, and against all Idumea, which have appointed my land into their possession. Edom, Idumea, which have appointed my land into their possession, with the joy of all their heart, with despiteful minds to cast it out for a prey. Prophesy therefore concerning the land of Israel, and say unto the mountains, and to the hills, to the rivers, and to the valleys, Thus saith the Lord God, Behold, I have spoken in my jealousy and in my fury, because ye have borne the shame of the heathen. Therefore, thus saith Yah Elohim, I have lifted up my hand. Surely the heathen that are round about you, they shall bear their shame. But ye, O mountains of Israel, ye shall shoot forth your branches, and yield your fruit to my people Israel, for they are at hand to come. For behold, I am for you, and I will return unto you, and you shall be tilled and sown, and I will multiply men upon you, all the Beit Yisrael, the house of Israel, even all of it, and the cities shall be inhabited, and a way shall be built. And I will multiply upon you man and beast, and they shall increase and bring fruit, and I will settle you after your old estates, and I will do better unto you than at your beginnings, and you shall know that I am Yah. That is the portion from Ezekiel 35 and Ezekiel 36. What do we see there? it says concerning the children of Israel that they are at hand to come. The Most High is telling Ezekiel to speak to the land, saying that. Also saying that Idumea, Edom, who took the name of Israel and the land of Israel to themselves. And that the land of Israel is taken up, as Ezekiel 36 says, in the lips of talkers. Balfour Declaration, Schindler's List, the United Nations. Let's give them that land over there. The land of Israel is taken up in the lips of talkers. Why do you think they go and cite all these other books and don't go in the scriptures hard? There's a reason for that. Could it be because you know the more you read, the more you see it don't belong to you? That is talking about a people called Yisrael. And what it says concerning Yisrael in the land of Yisrael. Verse 8 here in chapter 36. But ye, O mountains of Yisrael, ye shall shoot forth your branches and yield your fruit to my people Israel, for they are at hand to come. Do you know the land of Israel that you see in the east, our land, imports more than exports? It imports more than exports. That's how you can tell as a sign that's not yours. Because when true Israel gets back home, it says that you will yield to my people and you shall till and be sown. Not Edom mixed in with Japheth politically, with Magog and Tubal that you see in Ezekiel chapter 38. Their portion, the Most High said that I will make them full. And there will be a, quote, third world war. Israel, our people, will go to war according to the prophecy in Ezekiel. Brothers and sisters, and giving honor and praise unto the Most High, the Creator, the Maker of heaven and earth. We hope and pray that everybody is well and will be better. Thank you to everybody who subscribed to the channel and channels. Thank you to everybody who comment, like, shared, and even took screenshots. Thank you to the people who encouraged me. First and foremost on the list, on the human level, my lady Sarai, who encourages me to bring these presentations out to the people. The brother Yirmiyahu, who I speak with ever so often. The brother by the name Mazaptia, who became a friend to me, and so forth. And everybody else online, whether you're hearing this now or hearing this later. I respect the fact that you want to take out your time, even if I don't know who you are, even if you don't know who I am. And yes, while people would, I need views, I can't let certain people on my channel because it's going to take away, quote, my views. There are over 2,000 people who subscribe to the channel, Mora Yeshaya Torah Lessons, and over 600 who subscribe to the channel, Mora Yeshaya History Lessons. I don't know all these people. I don't know people make up a fake thing when you never know who's behind a computer or who's behind the phone. But if you're still speaking about the Most High, you don't have the spirit. There's a lion in the streets, so I'm going to stay a hermit. The Most High has given you a spirit and allowed you to be able to speak upon his word. The internet is working well. I had some issues in the past with my audio. Todayah for wisdom to be able to say, I'll use the video on the computer because the audio on the computer is not good. And I don't know how to do the video on the phone, so I'll use the audio on the phone. Todayah for wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. Hoping and praying that everybody is well and will be better. Subscribe to the channel, please. Future presentations. No one loves America more than one who hates Africa. What's the point in even think about repatriation? What's better than what I got here? Artifacts of ancient Israel. Mora Yeshaya History Lessons. Honoring of 12 Presidents and Ownership, Part 4. Mora Yeshaya History Lessons, October 22nd. Slavery in the Continental Congress. Mora Yeshaya History Lessons, October 22nd. Last free public Hebrew class online. Mora Yeshaya Hebrew Lessons, November 1st. Story of Solomon, Part 4. Mora Yeshaya History Lessons, November 3rd. From Kemet to Compton, Part 4. Mora Yeshaya History Lessons. And that one, with Kemet to Compton, Part 4, we want to show the diaspora of our people from slavery that went to Mexico, that went into Florida, that went into Louisiana, and that went into California. That's something we want to point out in that one. History of Israel through Jeremiah's eyes. Why did I want to do that? Mora Yeshaya History Lessons is the channel, because during the time of Jeremiah is when Babylon, Egypt, Assyria, Israel, Phoenicians, and all of them really came in cahoots with each other. You find a lot of information about the world that Israel was around during the time of the prophet Jeremiah. You don't really find as much as that during the time of the judges. But by the time Jeremiah comes along, when Babylon is in power, and Persia is going to come up, and Assyria done fell, and Egypt is winding out, and Judah is winding out, we begin to see that in that case. Honoring of 12 Presidents and Ownership, Part 5, November 26th. So brothers and sisters, we ask you to subscribe to the channel, Mora Yeshaya Torah Lessons and Mora Yeshaya History Lessons. Hit the bell, like, comment, subscribe, and share. Hopefully everybody is well and will be better. We are going to, brothers and sisters, it is now going like on 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to, before the Shabbat is out, have a Hebrew class on the book of Deuteronomy for 2 reasons. One, there's some misinformation that has to be dealt with, and we want to clarify certain things to show how easy Hebrew is. So on the channel, I'm going to type this into the chat. All right. It's called Mora Yeshaya Hebrew Lessons and Mora Yeshaya We're going to have a presentation at 5:30 Eastern Standard Time, no longer than an hour it intends to be, about the Hebrew we see in Deuteronomy chapter 4. All right, so just want to point that out for reference purposes. All right, giving honor and praise unto Yah, asking you all again to subscribe to the channel, comment, like, and share. My number is across the screen, 908-587-4841. Thanking Yah, was able to deal with that bill, not to talk business and everything today, but the phone is on. For those who are interested, give me a call, text me, WhatsApp, or you can email me as well at YYISRAEL22 at yahoo.com. Shalom.